Now more than ever, first-time founders are asking, do I need a patent before I start building my app? Well, again, if you're a first-time founder, chances are you've asked yourself this question. It is a very common and very valid question. After all, if your app is out there, it feels like your baby, right? And the last thing you want is someone else to go ahead and steal it. But the truth is, for most apps, a patent just isn't very necessary. And actually, it's pretty much a huge waste of time and money in most situations, right? But again, before we get into too much detail, you're probably sitting here wondering, who am I and how do I know what I'm talking about? I'm Timothy John Uzebu, co-founder here at Benmore Technologies. We specialize in helping non-technical, self-funded founders turn their ideas into real functional products. Right, over the years, we've worked with startups from all kinds of industries, including healthcare, real estate, logistics, and more. We built apps that have gone on to raise funding from investors, generate millions in revenue, partner with companies like Microsoft, JP Morgan, and more, and serve tens of thousands of users worldwide, including companies like the New York Times, Toronto Raptors, and Google. Right, so long story short, we've seen what works, and more importantly, we've seen what doesn't work when it comes to building software. So let's get into why you don't need a patent for your app. Let's just start with the very, very basics, right? A patent is designed to protect a unique invention or process, which is something that is actually novel. Right? Now, the problem is that most apps aren't inventions, they're actually solutions to existing problems, which is a little bit of an important distinction to be aware of when it comes to filing a patent. Right? So think about this, right? Apps are typically just built by combining existing technologies, things that have already been out there that are either open source, publicly available or licensable, things like APIs, algorithms, different frameworks, all these sorts of things, combining those into a new way and showing those to users, right? That means that most apps actually don't qualify for a patent in the first place, right? And even if you could qualify for a patent, here's the kicker. Patents are expensive and time consuming, right? Filing a patent can cost tens of thousands of dollars and years to finally get approved. And during that time, the tech landscape and just the tech world in general could shift dramatically, or a competitor can launch and dominate the market while you're stuck in legal proceedings. Number two is that patents don't guarantee protection. Even with a patent, enforcing it is a completely different story. If someone goes and infringes upon your patent, you can spend years and hundreds of thousands of dollars in court, while you probably don't have that capital to begin with if you're a self-funded founder. And number three, in reality, execution matters way more than the idea. Again, the secret to your app success is not the uniqueness of the idea, especially in today's climate where people aren't really focused on building platforms anymore. They're focused on building applications on top of pre-existing platforms to create a better user experience and provide a better service to their users. Think of Airbnb, right? They didn't invent short-term rentals. Uber didn't invent taxis. They just executed on the idea better than what was previously out there. So if getting a patent isn't the greatest idea in the beginning for a lot of non-technical self-funded software founders, the question arises, right? What is important to focus on instead? Number one is speed to market, right? The faster you can build and launch your minimum viable product, the better. The goal isn't to build the perfect app up front at the beginning. No, you want to get something in front of users as quickly as possible so that you can start gathering feedback and iterating on the product, right? Making it more defensible because it's closer and closer to what's called product market fit, meaning that your product is exactly what your users want and they start to spread it via word of mouth. And that leads into customer validation, right? You want to make sure that you're solving a problem that people are actually finding important. So talking to potential users, collecting feedback, refining your idea and your app over time, especially in those early days where you're probably wearing a ton of different hats, maybe even working a day job still, you don't have time to be doing all those other things, as well as going through the whole patent process and sinking resources into that area. And that also plays into building momentum and further iterating and improving upon your product, right? Again, to hammer this in, your product, your application will not be a complete whole representation of your vision at that very first launch stage, right? It takes years and years of refinement, iteration, momentum, market domination for you to have enough data for your application to really hit that vein and reach product market fit, right? So anything that's not focused on that, especially pre-product market fit, is not a good use of resources. Now let's dive into a few real world examples so we can illustrate exactly what it is we're talking about and have it be really, really concrete for us to all get here. So in August 2016, Instagram, if you remember this, introduced the Stories feature, which allowed users to go ahead and post photos and videos that would vanish after 24 hours a concept pioneered by Snapchat earlier. Instagram CEO at the time, Kevin Systrom, blatantly acknowledged the inspiration, stating this isn't about who invented something. This is about a format and how you take it to a network and put your own spin on it. Right? Of course, the impact of stories on Instagram was very significant. Within 2 months, the feature amassed over 100 million active users. And by June of 2018, Instagram's user base soared to over 1 billion monthly active users, with stories playing a pivotal role in the growth. Now let's shift gears and analyze the impact on Snapchat. Snapchat's engagement numbers actually took a hit. There was a 40% decline in unique viewer for Snapchat stories between July and November, which coincided with the rise of Instagram stories. Now, one thing that we can take from this is that patents aren't the key to winning in tech, right? What really is important is execution. The fact of the matter is Instagram, or rather Facebook as a whole, since I was the parent company of Instagram, had a better, larger platform, a larger distribution base to be able to plug this feature into. The economics played itself out in the real world. A company like Snapchat would analyze the data and figure out a better, more defensible way to differentiate themselves in a crowded market like social media. And again, this is a tale as old as time, right? In most instances, especially within the software space, the first mover is not typically the one that ends up dominating that market share. Facebook versus MySpace, Google, Yahoo, Slack versus HipChat, and all the pre-Slack competitors. Netflix versus Blockbuster, one that's very poignant, especially post-COVID. We have Zoom versus Skype, right? Things like these that the first mover was there, right? But no matter what's out there, you need to be focusing more so on the execution as opposed to playing defense, right? Especially within the early days, it should always be offense, as opposed to spending time looking at what other people are doing, looking at defending your idea. How can you defend an idea when it hasn't even been built out in the market? You should be pouring all your energy, all your resources into getting to that critical mass, right? So that you can go in and start taking other people's ideas, right? Because you have this mode, you have this platform that has reached this inflection point whereby you're able to go ahead and do that. So the question begs itself, right? When does a patent actually make sense? But of course, there are some exceptions, right? If you have some sort of hardware components or really a groundbreaking and differentiable algorithm, right, into your software technology, a patent might make sense. But even then, it usually doesn't make sense in the very early stages. There are other things that take precedence, right? For, I would say 99% of cloud-based software, patents are an expensive distraction that typically won't protect you or help you succeed. Or in the words of Elon Musk,
is that something you patent?
No, we don't really patent things. Patents are for the weak.
Yeah, you share the, there you go.
You know, the problem is like patents are generally used as a blocking technique.
Right.
They're like using like landmines in warfare. They don't actually help advance things. They just stop others from following you. And most patents are BS.
So bottom line is pretty clear, right? You don't need a patent to build your app. You might need one in like the rare 1% case where it's applicable. In that instance, by all means, go ahead and speak to a patent lawyer, patent attorney, and get their opinion, right? But in most scenarios, you typically won't need one. What you will need instead is a clear plan to help you validate your idea, to focus on the execution over perfection, and a willingness to iterate and improve the product based on user feedback. So if you'd like to schedule a free consultation with our team to discuss your idea and potentially getting it built out, feel free to go to the bottom in the description and click the link to book a call with our team, or go ahead and look at some of our previous content to learn more about the software space and the do's and don'ts from our experience talking to founders and building apps on our own.